Let's talk about the story you just broke.
Yeah.
And, in talking about the censorship now. So you guys just put out this tweet. Mark Zuckerberg, actually, I have the tweet right here. You tweeted, CEO Mark Zuckerberg takes anti-vax stance in violation of his own platform's policy. I'm not going to read his quote because, even though I know you already did, but they might try. I'll tell you what I do. When I read quotes, I'll do this. Quote, I share some caution on this vaccine because we, and this is Mark Zuckerberg saying this, just don't know the long term, and again, Mark Zuckerberg, side effects of basically, and again, this is from Mark Zuckerberg's quote, modifying people's DNA, Mark Zuckerberg here, and RNA. No, I have to do that because
they'll selectively edit you.
Yes. No joke. Me reading something from Mark Zuckerberg and they will splice it together. Well, go ahead and splice it that many times if you really want to do it. Some people will. But this is Mark Zuckerberg basically saying something that, as far as I can tell, was never believed to be correct. When the research in the news was coming out about the mRNA vaccine, it was never true. It was always a conspiracy theory that it modified DNA. Now, at the time, it was not against Facebook's rules to claim that. That's my understanding. That's correct, right?
At the time, but recently Facebook announced that they are, quote, expanding their efforts to remove false claims on Facebook about the vaccine. So Mark Zuckerberg makes this statement in July where he's essentially violating Facebook's own policy. And the question is, I guess Mark Zuckerberg's thinking has evolved on the vaccine, and but it's a little bit strange because he's now just instituted this policy prohibiting what he was saying a few months ago.
Well, I think it's fair to say people's opinions change. And Mark Zuckerberg was clearly wrong in this. The mRNA, it essentially, it doesn't change your DNA. It just configures certain cells to produce the spike protein. And then when those cells die off, that's it. That's the end of it. That's why there's actually multiple doses. And that's why they say it doesn't work necessarily in the long term. But this was, I don't know what he was reading. Mark Zuckerberg was reading fake news. Now, it's fine, in my opinion, that he wants to have an opinion that's incorrect because people are wrong. Even Mark Zuckerberg. The real issue here, as you can see, and we were talking about this earlier, Zuckerberg is afforded the right to pontificate on things that were widely considered to be conspiracy theories at the time.
Right.
Whereas if I said the same thing, I would have been annihilated in the media. He's telling his own staffers this stuff. Now he's implementing this rule. And again, I'm not holding it against him that he changed his opinion, okay?
No.
But the authority is him. This is the problem. Who appointed Mark Zuckerberg to decide when and how we're allowed to think about things and share opinions?
Well, his own vice president, Nick Clegg, we had him on a leaked tape, basically saying they're just making this stuff up as they go. This is Nick Clegg, vice president of Facebook. He's a British guy, and he's on the, I guess he has their an oversight board. And they're basically playing the role of judge and jury of the Supreme Court. The Financial Times reported there is a growing trend. Tech companies think they should be deciding public policy, not government. And this is a prime example. This has nothing to do with my opinion about the vaccine or whatever, or Europe. It doesn't. The point is, Zuckerberg's the CEO of Facebook. And just a couple months ago, he was anti-vax. This is Mark Zuckerberg. Not me, not you, not us. It's Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of maybe the most powerful company in the history of the planet Earth.
At a time when if you tweeted anything remotely anti-vax, they went after you hard.
But this is the CEO of Facebook anti-vax. On the record, not on the record, he's off the record. He's behind closed doors.
To a major...
I guess he's on the record to his own staff, his own executive committee, saying this. This is a whistleblower inside Facebook, folks, has given us this tape of Mark Zuckerberg. That is one of Mark's own colleagues, is a source to James O'Keefe, and is still a source to James O'Keefe. That's why those engineers are very careful right now.
That's pretty cool.
Pretty cool, right? And Mark Zuckerberg, just a few months ago, said, I'm anti-vax. I think it changes your DNA. Again, Mark Zuckerberg's words, not mine.
It's too late. They got you.
But suddenly, now, Mark Zuckerberg has changed the policy. You're not allowed to even pontificate about the vaccine. Doesn't that seem a little capricious to you?
I think it's good that he finally realized he was wrong. I think this is actually included in your report that he did a public conversation with Dr. Fauci. And here's what I love about this, because I texted you when I saw this and I was like, well, look, I get it if he changed his opinion. You guys fully included the dates of when he said it, the date of when he had a change of opinion. You're not hiding the fact that, and I think it's fair to point out that sometimes people's opinions change, and good for Mark Zuckerberg on realizing he was wrong. The issue is, if it's wrong to say it now, we knew it was wrong to say it back in July when he was telling his employees this. The point is, why was the rule just implemented? Why was Mark Zuckerberg allowed to push insane conspiracy theories to a massive company, Facebook, I guess the idea is if we're going to live under this rule about disinformation, you can clearly see that Mark Zuckerberg shares disinformation, and then it only changes when he realizes he was spreading disinformation.
In many ways, and this Nick Clegg, the vice president of Facebook, is admitting as much in a leaked tape, one of these leaked tapes, saying we're kind of having to come up with these rules. Think of it like the U.S. Constitution. Imagine the United States Constitution had very specific things that you're not allowed to say. One of them is you cannot speak about the COVID vaccine. I mean, that's what Facebook is saying. They're just making new things up that you can't talk about. And the analogy I draw is the Constitution of the United States is very clear. Congress shall make no law prohibiting the free exercise of the freedom of speech. But Facebook has these rules about certain subjects you're not allowed to pontificate about. And the audience, well, they're a private company. They can say what they want. They're a private. I get they're a private company, but you can't lie. Lying is wrong. It's just unethical.
I would even question the private, remark there because they work hand in hand with the government in many different ways. So I would say they're even a quasi-government agency, not even from their seed funding, but from what they're doing now. So it's interesting because he's afforded to change his mind. He's allowed to pontificate, but we're not. That's the thing. When you get rid of conversation, when you censor it, when you stifle it, you spread a lot of these crazier theories, and then again, it deserves to be called out. And I'm happy someone's calling it out.
Look at Twitter and Hunter Biden. This is one of the biggest media scandals of our generation. A news story broke about Hunter Biden, President Joe Biden's son at the time, running for the highest office in the land. And his son was implicated in some very serious crimes, and his brother. So Twitter intervened, Facebook intervened, and they publicly bragged, don't worry, we're suppressing this story so people can't see it. And then 2 weeks after the election was over, they were like, oh, that story? That was true the whole time. It was true the whole time. That is horrifying. And so this goes hand in hand. I think you're looking for some consistency. The consistency would be Mark Zuckerberg says, don't spread disinformation. We derank disinformation. They give power to these third-party fact-checking organizations, which just make stuff up, and they put out fake news themselves. Like my favorite was Snopes article. Did Ocasio-Cortez exaggerate the danger she experienced in the Capitol? False. While she wasn't in the Capitol was stormed. No. AOC's story about the Capitol took place a full hour and 10 minutes before the building had been breached. So I think it is fair to have the opinion she exaggerated. Why then is Snopes given the ability to slap a warning label on my posts, which is, in my opinion, they didn't actually do that to me. I'm just saying on your or anyone else's posts, Snopes can now put their opinion over your opinion. If we're supposed to be living by a standard to stop disinformation, I think what we've now realized from, the video you've put out just now, this is the context I think you need to make sure people understand.
Right.
That in July, it was a conspiracy theory to say what Mark Zuckerberg was saying, and he didn't care. He let people say it. Now he had the epiphany, so he makes the rule. That's the problem. Are we allowed to have these ideas and communicate, or is it only on Mark Zuckerberg's whims the rules change?
This is an extraordinary point, Tim. It's like a constitution. People need to understand these companies just, okay, now we're going to create a rule this week saying you're not allowed to talk about this. These are private companies. Again, this is from the Financial Times. Momentous decisions in the hands of private companies is not a long-term public policy solution. They neither have the legitimacy nor the capacity to make such decisions in the public interest. These are Supreme Court. These are akin to Supreme Court decisions. For Facebook to say, okay, now you are not allowed to talk about vaccines. We will ban you.
Hold on.
It's more powerful than if the United States Supreme Court were to cast a decision tomorrow saying you are not allowed to talk about red delicious apples.
So hold on. Is the rule actually that you can't talk about vaccines at all? Or
I'm going to read the rule to you. This is last week, Mario, I believe. This is Facebook announced last week a new rule that said, quote, we are expanding efforts to remove false claims on Facebook and Instagram about COVID vaccines and vaccines in general.
So I wonder, it'd be really funny if one day Mark Zuckerberg just he meets somebody who he has this epiphany and he becomes this crazy fruitarian who thinks meat is wrong.
Right.
And then he passes a rule where he's like,
right.
I think that eating meat is just wrong, and eating vegetables is also wrong. You know, a lot of people talk about not doing harm to animals, but you also harm the plant when you eat the vegetable. Fruits are actually meant to be eaten, so I think everyone should have to eat nothing but fruit and spread the seeds. So now we're going to ban anyone who promotes meat or advertises it.
That's exactly right.
Right.
That's exactly what
It'd be
happened.
insane.
Because in July, he said, no, this thing is, I'm an anti-vax guy, and I think it modifies your DNA. This is like not 5-10 years ago. This was in 2020 he said this. And suddenly he had a change of heart. I mean, so I think that Facebook is more powerful than the United States Supreme Court. In fact, these tech companies are more powerful than all three branches of government. So when they make a rule change that says you can't talk about something, it's as if the United States Supreme Court made a change about codified the United States Constitution.
Well, give me the ability to control what people say, and I care not who makes the laws.
Well, the thing is, okay, this is the big debate. This is it. This is a big debate of our times. They're private companies right now, and we don't have the right to seize their means of production as a company. That's very communist. If we were to say, okay, Facebook, now you're government controlled. We're taking the country. We're not going to do that.
We're not seizing the means of production.
So we're not going to make them create their own terms of service. We can't do that. That's a communistic takeover. We can't do that. No. Listen to me. And the problem is these companies have a right to create their own terms, as does a restaurant. They don't want you talking about certain things in the restaurant. Get out of the restaurant. That's the restaurant owner's right. My concern is how do we move forward in the society with that still being the case? And I can only find, Tim, please let me finish this thought, that we need to free the software code. It's the only way to allow other people to create software as powerful as Facebook with their own terms of service.
So you made several points there, and the premise of your final conclusion is incorrect, which is what I'm trying to address. Scale exists. If there is one person buying up all the farmland and now no one has food, the people have a right to say, nah, you can't do that. One small plot of farmland has a right to their sovereignty to grow their crops and be left alone. One person seizing every single opportunity for people to eat is very different. Facebook is not some small platform people use sometimes. It is one of the largest, if not it is the second largest website, I think, on the planet behind Google. And they essentially control the flow of information by monopolizing it. They've now used that monopoly power to control our politics. It is not the same thing as a restaurant. There's 50 different restaurants that are not chains I can go to. There's no other Facebook. The president is not on these other platforms.
Okay, I agree. It is a monopoly. But if you look at Rockefeller's Standard Oil, they broke it up. That was the first monopoly. And all it did was make Rockefeller more rich. They created 6 new oil companies that he had stock in all 6. If they did this to Facebook, you'd have Facebook Prime, you'd have Facebook Messenger, you'd have Instagram.
That's not the answer.
And no, it's not the answer.
Right.
Breaking up Facebook is not the answer.
Yes.
Regulating it by freeing the software code, yes.
Why would freeing the software code do anything?
Because it would give people the opportunity to create software as powerful with their own terms. And then people would migrate to the place with the best terms.
You just advocated against seizing the means of production. Now you're advocating for it.
No, I think that Facebook has the right to function, and I would never want to take it away from Mark.
The code is their means of production.
No, the means of production is the website.
No, the factory is, yes, what's the website made of? The code, right?
Yeah.
So you want to give the secret sauce that makes their system work.
Yeah, but I'm not going to take their system.
That's what you're advocating
No,
for.
I'm not taking. I don't want to take Facebook. I want to free the software code so other people can create more of them.
So you're taking.
It's different.
They're allowed to keep their brand, but not the actual.
And
company.
the website and all the marketing that goes through the website. Yes, of course. That's the only capitalist solution I can find over the last 2 years.
I think you're talking about transparency. I mean, these platforms. They have the ability to amplify certain voices while excluding others. It's a product of scale economies, and their power comes from squeezing out alternative platforms while fueling this virality. And I think, I agree with you on one hand. I think it's about transparency. I'm biased, Veritas, my mission, I believe in it. If we just expose how they do what they do, you're talking about like letting their competitors know how what do you mean by showing what they're doing?
Access to the source code.
Access to the code.
So you could see how the algorithms work, how the code is built, how the software is built, so you could reuse it. And if you make it a free software code, if you take the software and change it and make it better, they would have access to your changes as well.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
I don't know. I think the answer is, we had Will Chamberlain on the show talking about how Parler isn't the answer. We need platform access as a civil right to make sure people have the ability to use these platforms. But I got to be honest, the problem is multifaceted. So I'll give you one example. Just because I'm allowed to use Twitter does not mean Twitter is functioning properly, right? So we talk about Facebook censorship and the capriciousness of their rule changes. Well, recently I quote tweeted Cassandra Fairbanks. She did this story about vans pulling up to the TCF Center and questions being raised about it. I said I didn't think the videos mattered. Whatever they do prove or don't prove, I don't think they matter, because Time Magazine wrote an article basically saying that the election was rigged. And then I put, I'm sorry, they didn't say it was rigged. They say it was fortified by changing election laws and manipulating the flow of information. That's a fact. They didn't say it was rigged. That's what I said. They said it was fortified. Time Magazine wrote this article. Twitter blocked my tweet in all forms. You can't retweet it. You can't quote. You can't respond. You can't like. No, I'm sorry. You can't quote. You can't respond, retweet, or like. And they put a tag saying this claim about fraud is disputed, but it's literally not disputed. Time Magazine wrote it. I was quoting Time Magazine. So I actually reached out to Jack and I said, could you remove this? It is a false statement of fact. Jack did not respond, but he responds sometimes. I talk to him every so often. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.